But would you say there's a clear difference between people who demonstrate disordered eating and those who have a diagnosed eating disorder? Is there a difference, do you think?
I think there's a difference in the extent and the level that people will go to. Because I think a lot of, if you've got, I know through my work I did with Overeaters Anonymous and being a sponsor, I've worked with anorexics, and that mindset it's a hard one to get, but the process and their behaviors are still similar to the behaviors and processes in overeater users. They're just at different end of spectrums. So I think I think I would say the majority of people need coaching, and there's a certain amount who need therapy. And I think there's a fine line between what is therapy and what is coaching.
Yeah, I think they can both be done. I think they can both be done at the same time. I just think there have to be clear differences. This is my therapist who I maybe talk to about deeper stuff that maybe we're not as qualified to talk about. Yeah. Coaching is basically practical solutions. That's the way I say it. You have some practical solutions alongside your treatment. And I think a lot of people are boxed in. I mean, I got a little bit of shit on Instagram the other day. Had a lot of people have attacking us about what I put out there.
I noticed that.
Binge eating is a medical disorder. You are not qualified to talk about it. I'm like, well, I've coached thousands of people, hundreds on eating disorder, and I've had one myself. So I think I'm more qualified than a therapist who's just been at university and is doing a couple of ticky box exercises. You know what I mean?
Yeah, let's talk about therapists, shall we? So I went into therapy in a well-known clinic in the southeast of London that I can't mention for non-disclosure agreements because I signed an agreement with them. And I had the same process. I went into group therapy. There was this, very clever, very attractive 25-year-old therapist who was perfect weight, perfect height.
In shape, completely perfect.
And coaching a group of overeaters. Therapy group of overeaters who she'd probably never looked at a Krispy Kreme donut in her life. Right, and she's going to the group, and you're looking at her going, "Love, you ain't got even." And her whole response was just textbook, follow. You'd say it, and that was her response. You say it. So I was like going, "You're not helping me." Eventually, I got really quite agitated and threw the chair against the wall, and had a couple of very friendly orderlies who had a conversation with me. And then even when I had a session with the chief psychiatrist, again, he was running through some things. I was like going, I'm just not buying it. And don't get me wrong, therapy is great. Therapy has a really sensitive role for people, but it isn't always, the answer. And when you've gone through things in personal experience, you know how it impacts you and how it impacts others. And again, I am not a therapist, right? And there's a role for them, and I totally agree with that. But sometimes people, you've got to have that empathy. You've got to have that understanding. You've got to know where people have come from. And if you don't, then quite simply, it can be just be a box ticking exercise. And you all know as well as I do, if it's a box ticking exercise, you'll lie to the therapist. You go, yeah, I've done this. Here's my food journal. I filled it in the car on the way to go and see them. Have you stuck to it? Yeah, well, you've done really well. I haven't lost any weight. Well, you've done really well. Look, you've completed the food journal. It's just a box ticking exercise. Yeah.
I've got a different backstory to that. I have not been through therapy myself for that. But what I figured out, you mentioned it before about the behaviors and the tendencies of people who are maybe struggling with anorexia, bulimia, and overeating and binge eating, they're kind of the same thing. You do something because you get something from it. And in that moment when I was struggling with my emotional eating, I was trying to do a bodybuilding show and I was in great shape. I was 6% body fat. I had veins in my arse cheeks. That's how shredded I was. Yet I still used to struggle with binge eating and emotional eating because I was unemployed at the time in my life. My relationships were on the rocks. I was very angry and I was feeling a lot of guilt and shame about this, crazy prison I set myself up for myself, that I have to look like this and these standards have got to be that. And if I'm not doing it, I'm not worthy. I took it out on other people. And, there was points when I'm putting my fingers down my throat, making up, washing up liquid with water and salt, drinking it to throw it up and shit. I mean, at the time, I was just doing whatever I did to try and undo the binge. And what I was looking for was certainty because there was nothing else in my life that I had in control. There was such an emotional void with my relationships, with my finances, with my mental health, that the only thing that I thought would solve my problems was if I got this perfect body.
Yeah.
So it was certainty. And when I realized it was certainty that I was craving, because I was totally uncertain in all these other areas of my life, when I took the focus off the way I look and said, right, if I get certain in these other areas, this food will not have control over me. And that is the way that I undone this eating disorder. I don't have it anymore. I totally cured myself. Why? Because I realized in that moment, I thought that having this body would make me happy, because that's all I had in my life. It's the only basket I had. I had one egg, one basket, and that was it.
Yeah.
It was because of the emotional void in the other areas of my life that I was avoiding, that food was filling the answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's certainty.
And I agree. And I say to people quite a lot, in my past, that, if you think about a chair and it has 4 legs, if your leg, you've only got one stable leg, your chair is very unstable and it wobbles, and then eventually it'll fall over. And that's, the same approach I took with my mind, is that, the only constant, again, I threw myself into work, and that was my constant. When work didn't work, when work was difficult or challenging, then I had to find a way to soothe it and ease it, and it was either booze or food. And booze made me feel tired, lethargic. I couldn't focus, so I turned to food because it got me through working all nighters. It got me through. I couldn't drink all night because I couldn't focus, but I could eat all night. I could go grazing, hunting down takeaways and everything else to get me through the night. So
yeah, I think what people don't realize as well, Chris, food, it's been imprinted on my brain since we were born. As soon as we are born, sounds a bit disgusting, but we'll come out the womb. Yeah, the midwives pick us up, give that, I don't know if they do the little slap anymore, they might not do that anymore. And the baby cries to check if it's breathing all right. And a couple of hours later, it's crying. Oh, you feed the baby. That's subconsciously being programmed on our brain. When we feel discomfort, we look for food. Food is life. It's our energy for life. So people don't realize, since childhood, since we've been born, we've been using food for a source of comfort. That's all it is. And in that moment, in times of stress and uncertainty, if we don't know how to change the emotion we have, we're trying to avoid that emotion so much. Like, I knew if I felt anxious, that's how I had an emotional eating, really. It was anytime I felt anxious and having a panic attack, I knew if I went downstairs and ate 10 bagels with jam on, I would have a carb coma and get to sleep and I'd be all right. So I knew at this moment I had this paradox between, I want to look like this, but this food makes us feel better when I feel down and depressed. What do I do? And I felt trapped. And I didn't realize it's been subconsciously programmed on me that food is comfort. And it wasn't until I realized that it's a go-to stress response. It's not a mental health issue. It's a go-to stress response. It can be left to a mental health. It can manifest into a mental health issue if it's not kind of diagnosed, treated, or you're not aware of it. It will manifest into that. But in that moment, I cured myself and hundreds of other people I've worked with by going, right, what's the strategy behind the scenes? Because it's not this food that you want. It's the feeling it gives you.